Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of GameTales, the show where we talk about a lot of things in a couple of hours usually. Sometimes we split into several episodes because we tend to drag on a lot about different subjects like adventure games last time. Today we're gonna talk about civilization, not the concept of civilization that we are as humans in, but the game series Civilization. And again, I'm joined by Stefan from the channel Complete Nonsense. Hi, Stefan.
Hey, Unicom, and good morning, afternoon to our listeners. And I hope everyone is doing good and everyone enjoyed our last two-parter. But I think this one is just going to be one episode, to be honest.
Yeah, unless I start rambling about Civilization 4, it's going to be one episode.
Now, we have like 6 main titles to talk about, so yeah, I think we're gonna keep it to around an hour.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about the other 3 or 4.
I think there's a bunch. There's a bunch extra, but yeah. We'll keep it to the main Civilization titles.
We'll try. We'll fail, but we'll try.
Mm-hmm.
So, Civilization. Out of curiosity, before you played Civilization, was there any other type of game like this that you ever played?
No, absolutely nothing. This was so I started. The first one I played was Civilization 2, and I mentioned this in prior episodes. Civilization 2 was one of the 3 main classics I played. I initially played. It was Civilization 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and Warcraft 1. And Civilization 2 was also the first ever game I got on an entire CD.
Really? You had the complete version with Elvis?
I had with video and with the video advisors and everything, yeah. So it was mind-boggling, and I played it. I don't know. I think it was around 2000 actually, which, granted, it's kind of late, but that's when I had a computer. So yeah, that's when I played it. But no, I had no experience of any sort of tactics or strategy game up until Civilization 2. And damn, that was quite the baptism by fire. Mm-hmm.
Well, I started out the first kind of 4X game that I played. 4X, for those who don't know, is genre usually turn-based, where you begin with a small little, let's say, a building block for a civilization, for an empire. Then you go out, you explore your surroundings, you expand your outposts, your cities, you exploit the environment, the terrain, and then you exterminate anybody you meet. That's where the name 4X comes from. The first one I played was Space Empires 4 in the demo version, which had the 100 turn limit, and I played it for months and months.
Yeah. That was something we used to do back then when we would get demos or just like a game that we would play ad nauseum. So on the other hand, that's what allowed us to get so good at them and have them
become obsessive.
Yeah, and have them become such a big part of our lives, because we played games literally for months, if not years. Like that Diablo 1 demo, you know which one, the one with like 4 levels. That must be the most played for randomly generated levels in history, at least in our part of Europe.
Yeah, probably. I kept trying to find ways to break it so I could go beyond it, and I think there was one version of the saved game that let you go beyond at least one more level, or so the legend went.
Well, the legend also said there was a secret cow level, and there wasn't. So yeah.
Do you think that if we had the amount of games we do now back then, we would still have the same connection with games that we did when we were younger?
No, I don't think so. I think I think that I like having options, but I do believe there's something linked with paralysis by analysis, and in my case, I expand that concept to paralysis by too many options. So when you have too many options, sometimes you just don't choose anything.
Yeah, just go from one to another, and nothing really sticks to you. You're like a duck on water.
Exactly. Or, if you're lucky, you find something that's really good and then you just stick with that series or something. But there's very little, experimenting going on when there's so much. I mean, and the logic says it shouldn't be. Logic says, oh, there is something for everyone. Yeah, but until you find that something for you, that will cost you a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah.
Whereas, when there is less choice, again, not the most ideal of circumstances, but when there's less choice, you can actually get to see properly what it is, because there's games that start, let's say they're an okay game, but then after a couple of hours, and this used to be the case, they become awesome games.
Or horrible. It depends on luck.
Yes, obviously. So Civilization was the type of game that started really slow. Civilization 2, let's say, because that's the one I played. Civilization 1, but I played it more as a, let's see,
curiosity.
Let's see what came before Civ 2. And Civilization 2 definitely started slow. So it might not. I really can't say if I would have spent the time and put in the time to see where it can take me if I had twitchier games to play at that point in time. Now this might actually be more relevant for most people. For me, I don't know. I might have spent the time anyway because I always liked chess. So I used to play chess on my Spectrum ZX also. Not a good chess player, mind you. I just liked it. So I might have actually put in the time, but someone else who doesn't have my geeky affinity towards chess and turn-based games might not have. So I do think that having less choice allowed us to create these very strong, literally lifelong, and maybe in some cases
obsessive.
I don't know about obsessive. I don't go for obsessive. I don't. That's already a mental issue to a certain degree. No, I want to take it to the more romantic route of life altering or vision modifying games.
I understand what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you mean because I didn't have a lot of games years and years ago. I would try and use all of them to their maximum potential, so I just go and dig through their files to see what was there. And I was actually surprised to find that in Diablo 1, there was a lot more there than that wasn't actually in the game.
Yeah, a bunch of it got ported to Diablo 2, but anyone who is really interested in Diablo 1 has already seen there's been one of those GDC presentations done about Diablo 1. And which is like an hour long and just goes through the history of what initially it was turn-based. It was a completely different game, and it only barely made it to when it was supposed to be released because, again, time constraints, money, bullshit.
It's going back to Civilization. The first one I played was also 2, so we have that in common. I think it was a lot more popular back then, like in our region, than Civilization 1, mostly because it looked better.
Oh, damn, man! So the how it looked was for us then, or for our technological capacity back then, which again it was quite behind the rest of the Western world. Civilization 2 looked extremely well. Like the map, the color palette was awesome, and especially if you had it on the CD, then seeing the video advisors and other animations and stuff was crazy. It got old really fast because they would repeat themselves, and then you shut it off. But for the couple of times you would hear that for the first time, it was awesome.
Yeah, and keep in mind, for the rest of the people in the world, this was around when Civilization 3 was almost out. So it was technologically a while behind, but so were we.
Oh, yeah, because Civilization 3 was released in 2001.
Yeah.
So, and I played this in 99 or 2000. So, yeah. And I played Civilization 2 for a long time. I don't even think, I mean, I got to Civilization 3 relatively recently. I then jumped straight to 5.
Oh, you skipped over 4.
Yeah, that's so the only ones I haven't played are 4 and the latest one, 6. But I know you played both of them, so you'll be completing the narrative on that side.
Yep. Thing is, I did play Civilization 2 a bit in the old days. I had a hardware issue where one day my hard drive got erased. I don't know exactly what happened. I think something got corrupted, and I lost everything on it. So
that used to happen a whole lot more.
Yeah, I know.
In the long ago, actually, because I lost. Holy Lord, I lost. I had hardware problems, like literally hard disk problems, at least twice in my history, and each time, man, I lost saves for an RPG that I fucking loved playing. It was called Drakensang.
Oh yeah, I actually finished that one.
The Evil Eye, which is actually based on an RPG tabletop system from Germany called the Evil Eye and something like that.
The Dark Eye.
Dark Eye, sorry, Evil. Close enough.
Out of curiosity, how far did you get into it?
Well, the first time I didn't get too far into it, I remember, but I was really enjoying the experience because I was really enjoying it because it was challenging. It wasn't like all of the other RPGs I had played up until then. I enjoyed this whole the entire system wasn't the combat system, the stat system had nothing in common with D&D, and I really enjoyed the freshness of that. And it wasn't a hacky slashy thing like Diablo, and the models had huge tits. Yeah. That has to be mentioned. No, that has to be mentioned because I was maybe 16 when I played this, so that definitely had a definite importance in me playing the game. But the actual gameplay was more important. But I always feel the need to mention that. And I lost the save. I can't really tell you how far I was into it, but I was enjoying like picking berries and making tea, which was an anti-poison. Great game.
The reason I ask is because I finished the game, but the main draw that lures you into the story is the murder of your friend.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah, and at the beginning I thought that was the main quest. So after you did one bit of the quest, you would get a pop-up with, "Oh, let's investigate Arnor's death further." I missed the last one. I never solved it. I finished the game, but I never solved the murder.
Holy shit! How do you?
I know.
Okay.
It was insane.
And yeah, the city was really nice. I think this was before Witcher.
Oh, let me think. I think it was after it because I reviewed it on Games Arena.
Okay.
Right.
We can check. I'm not really sure, but I remember enjoying the
2008, 1 year after Witcher.
Okay, so it was one. Although, granted, they might have taken some ideas from Witcher, because I do remember in Witcher 1 being the first RPG where the actual setting and the music fit with a European medieval-ish setting. I enjoyed the one, and that was valid for Drakensang as well. And then I played it again. I played an upgraded version. It was Drakensang the River of Time or something.
Yeah, that's the expansion of it.
Yeah, so I played that a lot. I played it. I think I had 2 or 3 pieces of the magic, holy, mystical armor, which you search for. It's like a quest. It's a main quest in the game to get these pieces of armor. And again, man, I lost the hard drive. The hard drive got kaputted. So that was really, really annoying. And I've never gotten to play the game again because in the meantime it became an MMO or some shit.
It had a sequel. It was standalone. It was like a single player. You actually played with the guy that got murdered in his younger days. It was actually a story being told by the dwarf to the redhead.
Yeah, makes sense.
Somewhere. And then there was the MMO as well, which it was based on the same rule set but not the same story.
But yeah, for those of you who are listening and who are interested in like some super hardcore tabletop systems, look into the Dark Eye system. I think, yeah, relatively recently, there was a successful Kickstarter that basically translated it into English, and like an updated version. So yeah, if you're interested, check that out because it's some hardcore shit.
So coming back to Civilization, because we talk about everything else besides it. Because my hard drive went, I didn't really play Civilization 2 as much as I wanted to. So instead, I found Civilization 1, which was a lot smaller and easily to download off the dial-up internet of the 2002, 2003 type hardware we had.
Yeah, XNet.
Yeah, and I played it for about 2 years, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It's the one that I played probably the most after 4. Civilization was a bit of a different experience because it didn't look as nice. It was a bit rougher, but it was still surprisingly easy to play, even considering when it was made in 1990. Well, it's 28 years.
Yeah, these guys. When you look back at the entire series, and you see how consistent, and now I'm talking just about the gameplay mechanics, but also the interface, because interface is important, and especially in these types of games. It's interesting how to see that they had very clear concept ideas as to what the game should be and how it should work. Because, Civilization 1, while it did look arguably worse than Civilization 2. Keep in mind, this is 1991, and then it was 1996. Technology jumped seriously in 5 years back then. Mm-hmm. But going from 2 to 1, like I did, I could see the same, basically more or less the same types of mechanics and the same types of interface being used. So I could play 1 without that much of an issue. And I think that's a really cool thing that they had such a clear vision of how the game should work and what it should be focused on, that basically that basic recipe has been going on since 91. 8 years?
27 years.
7, okay, sorry.
So long ago. I thought it was 1990 when it was released. It was 91. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's incredible that this rather, I think now you could call it somewhat of a niche genre. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big niche, but it's still niche. It's way far away from the mainstream. Has survived for this long. This has been almost around as long as computer gaming has been around.
Well,
at least
give or take a decade or so.
Yeah, at least mainstream computer gaming, because in order for something like Civilization to exist, you would need a bit more of a centralized system. Like you couldn't do Civilization in the fragmented era of the 80s, when there were a lot of platforms that needed specific coding to each of them.
Well, this one too was released for pretty much anything under the sun back then. For the Amiga, the Macintosh, the Atari ST.
Yeah, but it was at the tail end of that. I'm saying going forward, I don't think it could have survived if there were still all of those options available.
Fragmentation. The thing about fragmentation is that it did bring us something that we don't have right now, which is diversity and the ability to choose something that's better suited for our tasks. Now we just have Windows.
I know that's indeed true, but from the perspective of developing this series and considering how development costs have increased constantly and in some cases maybe even exponentially, that wouldn't have been a sustainable method of doing things. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they would have needed to be a lot more successful than it was to be able to continue doing it.
Exactly, in order to spread to everything. But then again, in this situation, the market decided with some more strong pushes from marketing, decided towards one or two platforms, and this allowed for a congealment of the market, and they could focus on making, hey, the games did get way cooler looking and bigger and more capable. So I think we would have lost some of the complexity and the depth that the games do have if they were to spend the time and port them to a bunch of other formats, platforms. At least that's my opinion, and that's the case.
Yeah, that could have certainly happened. It's a valid opinion to have.
So, Civilization 1, go.
Well, Civilization 1 introduced me to a couple of interesting concepts. I wasn't really aware of the whole Gandhi's a murderous maniac thing back then.
Oh, that has become legend.
Yeah, I didn't notice it in Civilization 2 that much, most because my memory of it is a bit foggy from back then. But it was sort of noticeable in Civilization 1 a bit. Where he was peaceful at first, but then just got progressively more warlike and did things involving nukes.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think people initially thought it was kind of a joke, like a bit of a satirical idea, to have Gandhi, who is supposed to be the proponent of peace and nonviolence, nuke motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't even have to do a lot to trigger him into nuking stuff. But they explained the reason behind that.
Also, one of the things that really sort of not necessarily bugged me about Civilization 1 and 2 both, but it seemed a bit intriguing, is exactly what civilizations you had and who ruled them. We had the Romans, which, Romans, okay, old civilization, they were around there at the beginning of history.
Yeah.
And then you have the French, who are technically descended from Romans, but they're there as well. And then you have the Americans led by Abraham Lincoln at the beginning of time.
Technically speaking, most of Europe is descended from Romans, or at least half. But yeah, man, again, this is a discussion we tend to have quite a bit, because you would like a bit more, not necessarily realism, but a realist approach to your games, whilst I'm okay with going with whatever the designer meant, as long as it works. Just as in your recent video about modern wizards. Mm-hmm. I understand where you're coming from, but I also understand the game designers wanting to make everything as playable from the start.
Yeah, and actually I got refreshed on this subject recently by a video made by Kyle Galgreen from Browse Held High. It's a YouTube channel that used to be on the channel also as well. He pointed out that Gandhi never was, a leader of India. Because India is a whole lot of people of different culture, different ethnicities, different everything, all lumped together by everybody else in one place.
Yeah, no, he was a cultural leader. He had a movement. He was the leader of a movement.
Yeah, but we see him as the leader of all India.
And not really. Civilization sets him as that. But again, you have to take some liberties in order to tell a good story, or in order for the game to work. So yeah, of course, it doesn't make any fucking sense for Americans as a civilization to exist at the dawn of time, and also to be led by some dude called Abraham Lincoln. But again, it's a video game, and it's not supposed to be a history documentary. Yeah, although it can help.
Yeah, it is. I pointed this out in the video I made about it like 2 years ago. That it's crap at history, but it's good at teaching you the concept of history.
Yes, and that's a very valid and interesting way of describing the game, and it works. But you still have to keep in mind it is a video game.
Yeah,
it's not even one of those super hardcore simulations meant to train a soldier or a pilot or Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's not supposed to simulate the experience. It's just only supposed to offer a general idea of what it took to get from huts to skyscrapers.
Yep. It involved a lot of spearmen defeating tanks along the way.
Phalanxes.
Yeah.
At least in Settlers, no, in Civilization 2.
Yeah. The Phalanx, they were a unique unit to the Greeks, weren't they? Remember?
Yep.
Yeah. There's something else that I recently got acquainted with is, again, through somebody else's video, but I forgot who made the video and what it was called, but it was a comparison between Civilization and, I think, Endless Legend, where it basically highlights the fact that the civilizations in Civilization, they are very, very lightly differentiated. Like, there is basically little difference between them, and what differences there are, they're not really talking much about the strengths or the play styles of the civilizations themselves. For example, the Vikings have longbows, and that's all we know about Vikings. Whereas in and then they're made to be a bit more warlike. But in Endless Legend, you had the civilizations that had completely different ethoses, like a civilization that was all about death, and it had to eat people to live.
Wonderful. Yeah, but again, that's not what the Civilization series was about.
Yeah. I mean,
they weren't... The video game wasn't... their goal wasn't to reflect any real sort of what existed, of real world history. It was just an idea, a concept of it. The other thing sounds quite interesting, obviously, but again, I imagine the game is about that. It isn't about managing city expansion.
Well, actually, it is. It's still a 4X game. It's just that the civilizations are different at a fundamental level.
Sure, but when was that one released? I don't know. I have never heard of it. So that's why
2013 or 14.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, I mentioned this now because I'm going to come back to it with Civilization 6.
Okay. We can't really compare something made in 96 with something made in 2006. Sure, you can totally compare it with the other games that were released at the same time. But when I think of Civilization 2, I don't think about that. Also, tangential point. Yeah, the Vikings weren't necessarily warlike. Yeah, there was a couple of them, a bunch of them who raided, but most of them were farmers. Just as a general. Also, they had no horns on their helmets.
Yep.
I live in Denmark. I've become quite aware, more closely aware of Viking culture.
And they also discovered North America.
I don't think anyone, any other sane person says otherwise.
There are some people that, correct. Yeah, you're right. You're perfectly right.
Okay, so, but did Civilization 1 have doom stacks?
Oh, I think you could still stack units. Doom stacks were not addressed until a couple of years ago.
I think Civilization 5.
Yeah, Civilization 5 fixed that.
Because that one, I remember the fact that you couldn't stack units anymore being one of the greatest things that happened to the game.
Oh God, yes.
And it's interesting to note that doom stacks were a problem in Stellaris up until the 2.0 Cherry update, where you can still stack a bunch of them, but not as many. I don't understand why that's a thing, but okay. I mean, if you're talking about, if we were talking earlier about how you would like more realism, and I accept, I suspend my disbelief to accept a bunch of designer choices just to make the game work, I don't accept the designer choice of stacking units.
Yeah, because you get into all sorts of bizarre situations where you're on a map, you would have things like longbowmen shooting their longbows over the British Channel into France, depending on the size of the map.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something that somebody else pointed out, but I forgot who.
I remember there was a world map in Civilization 2.
Yeah.
In the custom maps.
There was in the first one as well.
And man, when I was during the summer holiday or during holidays from school, when I had literally fuck all going for me, I had nothing to do, just exist.
Pure
I would
bliss.
I would just load up that map, man, and play it for days. I would play not nonstop. I would still sleep and maybe go out and eat, but I would just put up that world map and just play that shit for days, like saving and whatnot.
Nice.
Yeah, that was that's something that happened after several months of playing Civilization 2. You know, when I played through a bunch of games, a bunch of difficulties, and I just wanted to try something new, which again isn't something that happens very often anymore. You know, playing a game, you usually play a game, you finish it, and then you're kind of done with it. And it's not like, and the game designers, unfortunately, have stopped putting extra shit in them. Actually, they've started taking shit from them and selling it to us piecemeal in DLC mode. But I also remember, like many years ago, I played one of the few third-person games I played was Wolverine Origins, which I think is a good game.
Oh yeah, the combat in that one's amazing.
Yeah, because of that. And in general, it looks good. It sounds good. It's whatnot.
And the effects for when you get clobbered to death, you're just a skeleton. That's superb.
And I remember I played that game twice. I played it another time on the hardest difficulty level because once I finished it, it unlocked Wolverine's yellow suit, and I'm like, oh fuck, I want to play the game with him dressed in that suit. So again, that's not nowadays. You pay for that. There's no time actually for you to invest that much in just in one game because there's
the next
a bunch
one's
of
coming out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other offers out there, and this is something I have to struggle with as both as a wannabe game designer myself, although I'm more into the tabletop and card game stuff. For the only reason being I can't code for shit, and on the other hand, me wanting to find a game that I could stick with. But again, on the one hand, I want to spotlight indie games, which means I need to play a lot of them so I can talk about at least about a new one each week. On the other hand, I would also like to find some stuff that sticks with me. And I don't know if I've really managed to find in the past 2-something years of playing and covering indie games. There's been no time for anything to really sink in because there's something else.
There's always something else.
Yeah, I think. I still have Stellaris on my hard drive and a couple of the older ones, but I think Driftland, the one I covered last week, is also going to be. I'm also going to keep it for a while, but I don't know. Driftland is also it's also another 4X, but this one is real time with pause. Fantasy, magic, cool stuff. But again, yeah, the other things I have in my computer, the only other thing that I constantly play is PUBG because that I play with friends, and yeah, that's basically for entertainment and relaxation purposes, not necessarily as a means of immersing myself in a different world. Yeah.
Speaking of multiplayer, did you ever get the chance to play Civilization in multiplayer? The 1 or 2?
No, that was network and internet was a thing for me only starting with the summer of 2004. And I had dial-up earlier, but from 2004 there was like a neighborhood network and broadband. So by that time, Civilization wasn't really on the map. By that time, we were playing. I think Quake 2 was still a thing back then. some StarCraft. Yeah, so that's no, never got to play Civilization in multiplayer. You?
No, never got a chance to play it either because even when I got internet, I didn't really have anybody to play it with that I knew, because just starting a game with some randos would mean that it will never actually go anywhere.
Obviously. But I do know that there's this Civilization 2 is still a very appreciated title, because I've been reading a bunch of articles throughout like the past couple of years.
You know the one about the guy that's been playing the game for 10 years, right?
Yeah, there's that one. But there's also some people who made AIs to play the game for I don't know how long, and just as a way of studying the effects of global nuclear war.
Yeah, because back then you could actually melt the polar ice cap. You had a direct interaction with the environment, and your level of pollution, your level of bombarding the earth with radiation would actually affect the environment in a big way.
Oh yeah, it would destroy the economy and production of a lot of tiles. Sorry, but the game, so Civilization 2 looked great and it was awesome up until you kind of reached mid game, because once you started in the mid to late game, then everything was covered in roads.
Yep.
And then everything was covered in railroads.
Yep.
And this made it look like the shittiest pixel gray spider webbiest fucking thing possible. I mean, sure, it improved the tiles and allowed your units to move faster. That's great. But due to the limits of the art and of the time of the resolution, it made the maps and it made the games look not as nice, not nearly as nice as when you started out, when you had hills and mountains and trees and animals and resources.
In a way, it also sort of signified the effect of human on the environment.
True, that's true, yes. But it looked horrible. I called the look as spaghettification, because everything looked like a plate of spaghetti.
True.
And I was glad when I played Civilization 5 that not only did roads lose their ability to actually improve the tile that they were built through, they would only increase the speed of your units, but they would also cost a lot to maintain, which makes sense from a realistic standpoint. Mm-hmm. So starting with that game onward, I don't think spaghettification was still an issue. But again, I don't know about the 6 because I haven't played 6.
6 has, well, it doesn't have railroads anymore. They're just gone.
So they just skipped industrialization?
Oh no, it's still there, but no railroads. At least not in the base version. I think they may have added it in the expansion. I don't really care to buy the expansion as well to get the game that was supposed to be at launch.
Yeah, no, that, and I just mentioned this earlier. Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. Railroads are a pivotal part of human civilization and of the Industrial Revolution. If there weren't any railroads, none of this shit would have happened to begin with.
Yep.
So that's kind of that looks more than just a not a mishap. The other word.
The interface. No, I mean disaster.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean interface. I mean both.
No, yeah, not necessarily that one, but it sounds to have been like more of a projected thing than something that just happened. Oh shit, we forgot to implement railroads. No, we didn't. It was no.
So moving on to Civilization 3, which is a game that I played very little of. How much did you play of it?
Not a lot, but I played it enough to get an idea of how it worked. The interface looked clunky. It didn't take me a lot to get used to it, but it didn't look as friendly as I would have wanted, to be honest. You would have quicker access to your trees, to your tech trees, but yeah, sure. And it basically how I saw Civilization 3 and 4 was basically Civilization 2 with better graphics. That was that's my general review or opinion on the two games.
Well, 3 at least, like, it still had a similar kind of art style as 2, so yeah, you could make the argument that it just had better graphics, but it also had other new features. I don't remember if luxury items, like specific resources, were they weren't, weren't they?
I think there were. I think they're luxuries. I kind of tend to remember them existing.
I know that the 3 added civics. I think 3 added civics.
They might have, sure. That wasn't the thing into. No, but I'm just saying they weren't that big of a leap. As big as 5 was, because 5 changed a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But 3, the one thing I noticed with 3 and was annoying is the insanely aggressive AI.
Oh yeah, they used to make so many units that I just quit playing some matches. They just take forever for them to move them all.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fucking annoying, and the units don't do anything. They just patrol the areas. I mean, yeah. I imagine patrolling allows them to maintain their threat level or their borders larger, but it's just fucking annoying. So yeah, that was that. But once you get past the interface and the initial menu, which is I don't really like the initial menu, what the menu looks like, the menu screen. Mm-hmm. It was okay. Yeah. They still had the building your castle or temple or whatever.
That's a bit that I miss from the series. 3 was the last one that had it.
Oh, really? Okay, well, shit. Mm. But and going back a bit to discussing the types of civilization that were available, and I remember that I think by far one of the most advantageous ones to begin with was actually the Romans, because I think in Civilization 2 at least, because I think the Romans had the most technology to begin with.
They had road, they had the wheel, and I think there was something else too.
I would imagine aqueducts.
Probably, yeah.
But they had the by far the most useful ones to begin with. And I think by Civilization 3, they basically, I think they normalized all of them. I think I don't know if there's that much of a difference between the different civilizations, starting with 3 onward.
I think 3 added the health system. I don't think that was in 2, was it?
Health system for what? For your people?
Wisdom for your people, so they would get sick over time.
I can't really remember. I do remember though making temples would actually might help them, but I can't say for sure. No, I don't remember that being a part of Civ 2. It might have been Civ 5. So
we're gonna get called a fake podcast again.
Nah, it's fine.
Well, since I didn't really play much of Civilization 3, I can't really speak more about it.
I can just say that it didn't really make me want to play it again, to be honest. As much as I did play, and I played it a bit. No, there's not that much. There's not that much incentive there. I would still much rather start up Stellaris, to be honest. So, granted, it's a big difference between Civilization 3 and Stellaris, but just speaking from the sense of what I have in my hard drive right now. If I'm going to play a 4X, I would probably play Stellaris or Driftland once they update it with the final race.
So moving to Civilization 4, which you didn't play it at all. Not even a bit?
Nope. I think, I don't know. So Civilization 4 was in 2005. And if I remember correctly, in that time, there was a bunch, there was like, we've talked about this relating to life events and gaming being, correlating games with life events. I had just finished high school I finished it in 2004. But there were like several years there after high school when I wasn't really, I wasn't really clear or sure of really much anything about life, about who I am, about what I want to do, what I don't want to do, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I feel that that's why I didn't play Civilization 4, because that's when a lot of changes happen. Once you're 18, 19, that sort of stuff after high school. So I think that's why it dropped. I didn't get into Civilization because I was in a very chaotic and weird mindset back then.
Well, Civilization 4 came out right when I got internet, so I had access to it. I actually won it in a contest at an internet TV station called Arena TV.
Ooh.
I never got it. And I worked there.
Shit.
And they still didn't give me the prize.
Motherfuckers. That's a very Romanian thing to do. Okay.
I won it in 2006. It's 2018. Give me my goddamn game already.
That would be cool. Now, if you'd have like a boxed version,
yeah, it was boxed, yeah.
I would just save it. I wouldn't even open it because that might become a collector's item if it isn't already.
Yeah. Well, it was the standard DVD case, the simple one, not any sort of. But still, it was a game. Like, so it was still rare for me to see actual original games back then. It wasn't anything common.
Yeah, it would be some time. The only ones you would actually see. I mean, I think the first original games you would see a lot of was World of Warcraft.
Probably. Oh yeah, and Speedbusters. I remember commercials for Speedbusters in magazines going back to 2001. It was probably the cheapest game you could buy, the cheapest original game you could buy. Could not afford it, but still it was cheap.
Okay.
So Civilization 4.
4, yeah.
I very much enjoyed this game. Like, I absolutely loved it. I think it may have gone back a bit in terms of I don't remember exactly if pollution was as big as a factor as it was in the previous games. Because
that's an interesting choice to make.
But there was, I mean, it didn't affect the environment. You didn't get the sea levels rising. Again, if I'm not remembering completely badly, but it did have the health system, and health was influenced by your pollution. So the more you polluted, the sicker people got, and if they got sick, they would not work. They would be discontent, and you would have riots in several cities.
Well, makes sense.
You also had the civics, which again, I'm not sure if there were in 3 as well. Civics let you customize your government. You weren't just despotic, feudal, monarchy, something else. You now could tweak things, and I love that. You could
that was great. That's something that carried over to 5, and I think in 5 it was quite. You had quite a few options, from a political, ethical standpoint of leading.
And the thing is. This is something that I don't think even 3 came up with this. This was something taken from the best Civilization game, which is Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, also made by Brian Reynolds.
Yeah. That the Alpha Centauri is its own thing. Yeah. I mean, it looks like Civilization, sure, but
technically it is the end of Civilization, because one of the endings of all Civilization games is you shooting up into space.
Yes, that was the one I went for. Usually, I really loved building the space, Proxima Centauri ship. Yep.
Also, one thing to note is Civilization 4 really did expansions, because the base game was still enjoyable. I still enjoyed the base game. I liked it. But unlike the previous games, where each expansion would get you maybe online functionality, like it did with 2, I believe, or you would get scenarios with historic events, the expansions for 4 added like completely different stuff. One of them added the corporations as an entity that existed in the game, that you could found corporations, and those corporations would spread out. And they would give you bonuses depending on what type of corporation you had, what resources were accessible to you. It's something that the previous games never modeled.
Now that's quite a fantastical concept, a corporation giving you bonuses.
Yeah, because it sort of works in a world where corporations pay taxes, I guess. So totally not realistic.
But
did 2 have religions you could found? Because I can't remember for certain.
No, you would research. From what I remember, you would research through the various developments of religion. You started with ceremonial burials, and then you would upgrade your religious-ish research. But no, you couldn't actually decide or start something. You would research, from what I remember, you would research things such as Confucianism and Buddhism, philosophical concepts.
But it wouldn't necessarily turn into an actual religion in the game.
No. It would just give you some sort of a buff or,
Well, in 4 you could. When you researched, I think it was spiritualism, you got to found a religion. And as you research other things, you got to found different religions if somebody didn't already take them. And it would unlock religious warfare. You could spread religion to other people. You would fight against their religion. And religion itself would give you bonuses.
Yeah, it makes... actually, if you're coming from it from a realistic standpoint, that's what a lot of history was about. People, just your sky god is different than my sky god.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kill you because... that makes all the sense in the world.
There can be no peace between us until they renounce their foul duck god and accept our rabbit god.
Yeah, it's like sky cake. Patton Oswalt has a sketch about it. But yeah, no, that sounds good. Unfortunately, never really got around to 4. I have it on my wish list now.
Have you at least listened to Baba Yetu?
Oh yeah, that's a thing. That was a thing on the internet.
Yeah, that thing won a Grammy. No joke.
That's great, because that might have been the beginnings of recognizing the gaming industry as something more than just shit kids do. Mm-hmm. Which I still feel is a thing that happens a lot in the mainstream. But
it does. That's quite a lot. So let's move on to the one we both played, Civilization 5. Go.
Yes, played Civilization 5 quite a bit. I remember, I think I had just gotten an upgraded computer. Let's see, it was 2010. Yeah, I think I had just gotten I had just gotten a contemporary computer. This was like the second time in my life when I had a computer that could play games that were being released then.
So you could play it with the graphics, not just the 2D map, like I did.
Yes. Granted, I would still have to tweak it a bit, but yeah. And the computer would overheat because it was an AMD, and back then AMDs heat up a lot. Odd how now it's the opposite, right?
Yeah. Strange.
Yeah. But I remember thoroughly enjoying Civilization 5. And there were a couple of things. I mean, the graphic, the sound, everything, that was great. But there were a couple of things that really set it apart from the other games, from a mechanical and gameplay standpoint, which is what I want to see in sequels. I want to see them improve when it comes to any sort of sequel. Yeah, sometimes more of the same works. If it's done well, it can work. Sometimes but most of the times it will just it will just seem tired or fatigued, overused. But 5 brought a bunch of new gameplay mechanics to the Civilization series, and so I mentioned earlier the fact that roads weren't as ever present. So this allowed for your maps and your world to still look nice once you've reached the Industrial Revolution. They already mentioned the fact that units didn't stack. Yeah. Not only did they not stack, but you would also get statistics before fighting.
You got that. You got that from Alpha Centauri. I think it was in 3 as well. Because it was in Alpha Centauri for sure. You would get an outcome for the battle.
Okay, sure. I don't know. Apparently I haven't fought that much. I didn't get to fight. No, you don't get outcomes in 3 because you fight barbarians and shit, and there is no outcome to be seen, or at least I don't know where to look.
Well, it wasn't Alpha Centauri and it was in 4. I'm fuzzy about 3, but maybe it wasn't there.
Might have been, but I don't know. But for me, because like I said, I jumped basically from 2 to 5. The statistics were great. Not only that, but it also explained why the outcome. For instance, if your troops had to cross a river, then they would incur a penalty.
Yeah, that was explained in 4 as well. So a lot of improvements apart from the hexes and the stacking were made also in 4.
Yes, and also there was flanking bonuses. Yeah. So instead of you stacking, you would actually benefit if it had several units, one next to another.
And you acted as a unit. You strategized, if you will.
Yeah. Yes. Actual tactics going on. And the fact that one of the biggest things for me was that they switched from from square tiles to hexes. That for me is a big thing. I have a problem with games that still function on square tiles, even though I used to love. I was a chess player, and I do love D&D. I think game design has reached the point where hexes have proven to be way more versatile than square tiles.
Yep.
I know it's harder to code for, sure, but there's so much more versatility there.
Because there's 6 neighbors, so you've got more options.
There's 6 neighbors, which means there's 6 directions to go, which allows you to be able to create all sorts of mechanics relating to range of vision, or what a backstab actually is, or where it's coming from, or that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I really, really enjoyed that. I've been thinking about making a video / an article about switching from square to hexes and why hexes make way more sense from a game designer standpoint. But then there were a bunch of new things in 5, just like you said, the ability to actually research and found religions and tweak and customize your regime, let's call it, the way in which you led your people. By far, the most important thing I saw in that one was that you could actually control your city's expansion. So
you could do that in 4 as well. You could decide where it would go.
If you could do it in 4, then that's great. Like I said, never played 4. That's like a huge hole for me.
Also, 4 had a funny way of playing. You had the 1 city challenge, where you could only ever build 1 city. That was amazing.
I think there's a Stellaris approach like that one, which is again when you play with only 1 Gaia world. Crazy, yeah, insane. But the fact that you could actually control where your city expanded not only made sense from a realistic standpoint, it also made sense from the gameplay perspective that you would actually have a resource sink in terms of because until then, maybe with the exception of 4, maybe until 4, your cities would just increase their range in a basically like in a circle pattern as their culture influence increased. Mm-hmm. But with 5, you could actually spend that influence to pick certain hexes, and obviously you would expand into the most advantageous ones, which I really found to be quite game changing. The switch from squares to hexes and the control of your city expansion really makes Civilization 5 quite a different type of experience than all of the ones that came up until then.
Mm-hmm. So my experience with the game was I was playing it in just the paper map mode, because switching on 3D anywhere but at the beginning of the game would just flat out kill the game. I only had 1 gig of RAM. The game wanted a lot more, so that was a no-go. Also, the thing that sort of I found amusing, that map idea was sort of borrowed from Elemental War Magic, because even when the game was in beta, they were testing it out with that map. They didn't have the 3D engine in the game yet, so they used only that map.
Hey man, like I said, I don't remember when I said something about stealing. Oh yeah, when we were talking about insults for fighting. Hey, if something is good, fucking steal it, man.
And speaking of good, Civilization 5's interface, it's perfect. Everybody has stolen this interface, especially end turn button. The end turn button in Civilization 5 will always turn into whatever action you can do now. You always have what action you can do right there in the same place, always. You will never forget to move a unit, never forget to produce something, you will never forget to research something, because it's always there. No pop-ups, no annoying messages, it's always there in the same place. Everybody's copied this, which is a good thing. But they've also copied the exact design, like visual design of the interface, which I do not like, because everybody's making the same interface. So just copy that button, that's all. That's the brilliant part.
Yeah, I do remember being a bit overwhelmed by the interface initially, and I think that's something that's valid for a lot of 4X games and city builder games. You know, like when I played Banished, it was quite daunting at the start, but wanting to play the game and investing a bit of time into it, once you got used to it, you would see that you had everything you needed.
Yep.
At the most in 2 clicks.
Yeah.
The
most of them were 1 click away, and the more obscure ones 2 clicks away.
Yeah. So that's like UI holy grail.
Yeah, it is superb. Like, it was fantastic.
To have everything you need at 1 click, and the more detailed crazy shit 2 clicks away. That's just great, especially when you're talking about the Civilization of 4X game, where there is a bunch of shit you have to keep track of and constantly monitor.
Mm-hmm. One thing you don't really have to deal with as much in Civilization 5 is happiness, because everybody shares happiness. So you can be an absolute asshole to some city, but because you're very, very nice to people in one city, everybody's happy. It sort of takes away from the challenge in the previous games of trying to make everybody just a little less miserable.
I guess, yeah. Well, shit. There have to be compromises. I guess when it comes to game design, there's always compromise. They probably had a valid reason for taking that out, because everything else works well. It's a very balanced game.
Well, the game was criticized for being a bit toned down compared to previous ones, and it was. I mean, it didn't have corporations when it first started out. I think the religions were a bit toned down at first, but it did get pretty much everything back in the expansions. So it went from adding functionality, like it was in Civ 4, to adding back functionality taken away, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah, but I do remember playing the base game, and the base game was fine. I mean...
you didn't play 4 before, so that's an important bit you have to remember.
True.
A lot of people saw it as a step down in certain aspects from Civ 4, but again, the interface was spectacular.
And I don't know, man, but for me...
also, Bucharest was there as a city-state, which is...
Nice.
We are finally in the game. So after 5 games, we are finally there.
Well, yeah, but just as a city-state, not as an actual... Well, it's a small country after all. Also,
when somebody gets mad, they can finally nuke Bucharest. So after seeing something political on TV, nuke. So it's perfect catharsis, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for us being Romanians. For other people, that might not mean anything.
Yeah.
Similarly, though, I found, and I posted this, I found Earth in Stellaris, me playing with an alien race, and I was supervising them, and they blew themselves up. That's something that can happen in Stellaris. You can build observation points and just research and observe cultures that aren't spacefaring yet.
You can also become sort of the Men in Black if you're a bit more.
Oh yeah, you can do depending on your technology and what you want to do. You can do a bunch of things. It's fucking great. But the basic thing that any race and or culture can do is just watch them.
Yeah.
And occasionally, some of these races, some of these planets don't make it out of the period in time, the technological period in time in which we are now. They basically nuke themselves.
They become a tomb world.
Yes, but in Solaris, when the planet Sol, the system is Sol, nukes themselves, at least in this game of mine, you find that the next species to pick up the pieces are giant, sentient cockroaches. Yeah. Actually, no, they're not sentient. They're just giant cockroaches. And just for the shits of it, I actually uplifted them into sentience, because you can do that in Stellaris. And basically, Earth is a polluted, a radioactive world where most of its population is sentient cockroaches who are my slaves. So that's vis-a-vis nuking. That's Stellaris has some great events and very fun, sarcastic, ironic writing.
Yeah,
I love that.
Well, I guess it's time to move on to the last. Well, we've glossed over civilization colonization, which it's colonization made for Civ 4. It's the same as colonization 1, but it's remade in Civ 4's engine.
But I believe you have an entire video about that.
Yeah, about the first version of it, not the.
About the first
it's kind of the same game. It's exactly the same. We're also going to glance over Civilization Beyond Earth because it's a really bad copy of Alpha Centauri.
I do remember that.
Technically, it's not even that. There was a game called Pandora: First Contact. It's an indie game made, published by Slytherin, I believe, the tactical war game publisher. That's made in the vein of Alpha Centauri, and it features a lot of concepts that you'll find in Civilization Beyond Earth, like a satellite layer. And that game, honestly, with the budget of nothing that it was made on, is better than the Firaxis one.
Firaxis had growing pains.
In 2014,
Oh well.
So let's move on to Civilization 6. You have not played it, not even the demo.
No, I haven't. I really haven't. This is back then. That's when I kind of started focusing a lot on playing a bunch of indie games and spotlighting indie games. So yeah, no, I haven't played Civilization, and I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of great stuff about it. To be honest, I've heard great stuff about Stellaris, so that's why I'm playing Stellaris.
Civ 6 will probably be a good game after the last expansion is out. I have not played the latest expansion of it. I even forgot what it was called. What was it? Development, reception, whatever the expansion was called. I forgot what it's called. The base game has a couple of really glaring issues. It's a bigger step back in some ways than Civilization 5 was from 4, but it does have one thing in its favor. It has the concept of districts.
What?
Districts.
Oh, districts, okay.
You no longer build all that many buildings inside your city. There's a very, very limited number of them. You do, however, build districts, an industrial district where you build factories, and this takes up its own hex. So you can't really fit like a city on a single island, on a single hex island, with every building possible in it and just have food being taken from all around. You will not get a really big city from just a small island, for example. You have to plan things in advance a lot more because each district takes bonuses from different types of terrain. For example, a scientific district takes a bonus from mountains because you could place an observatory on a mountain to gaze upon the stars. Religious districts as well, they have holy mountains. Things get bonuses from forests. It's a very in-depth system of building your cities, which is way beyond pretty much what every other Civilization game has had up until now. It's a beautiful system. The rest of the game, not so much. I'm not sure if they fixed this, but in the initial version, the AI was just garbage. It would build the first combat unit it had in millions and never win, because anything after the first technology level would cream it. It just built chariots.
I really don't understand why. You know, there's a lot of buzz and hubbub around development of AI and deep learning and that sort of shit and AlphaGo. Granted, that does take quite a bit more processing power than you might actually have already available in your computer, but I still don't understand why we're at this point in time and game AI is still so shit.
Well, what's his name? The guy from Brad Wardell from Stardock has written a lot of stuff about making AI for 4X games, where he stated many years ago that the progress of technology.
Yeah.
I'm going to porky pig this, has enabled us to have multi-core CPUs. So
yes,
it's ideal to be able to code the AI to use the extra cores just so it can outthink you. But making multi-core games work that way is really hard. Or it used to be at least around 4 or 5 years ago when Elemental War Magic was being developed. Man, that was 8 years ago. Oh my god. It was 8 years ago. How time flies. So I think there's also the issue of the person making the coding AI has to know the game, has to know it really, really well. It basically has to teach the AI to kind of choose the optimal possible strategies. That or they can cheat.
Yeah, but that's just the thing, because you don't have to. And I think again, there's a difference between optimal and what you need right now. You see the difference? So that's just the thing. They don't even have to. They don't have to teach them or train them or close them to do the optimal thing. They just need to do the best thing for the time. I don't know. I just again, coding is outside of my realm of interest, to be honest. But I just think that by this space, that we should have had so much better AI in basically any sort of game than we actually do. I don't know. Again, since I'm not a coder, I don't understand the actual challenges and pitfalls and whatnot. But from a game design perspective, I could maybe create an outline of how AIs should act or could act in a variety of circumstances, and then the coders can start with those and add to them all kinds of weird behavior. Fuck it. Why not just literally record, I don't know, 1,000 playthroughs of options and just put that into a randomizer? That's
basically, well, that's sort of how machine learning works. Only the AI would actually learn which one of those was the best one, which ones it should keep.
I'm not even going with that's just the idea. I'm not even going into the machine learning part. I'm just going to here's a bunch of options that actually real people did. you separate them by categories and time, and because obviously you can't build fucking spaceships from the beginning and that sort of stuff, and then just like randomly reallot them to a huge number of AI, and then that would make each game truly unique, because every time the computer would be doing really weird shit. I mean, maybe not for the start, but once you have a couple of technologies available, they would really start going for really weird victory conditions.
Yeah, and
wouldn't that be nice?
That would tie into the personalities that the AI leader should have in the game.
Exactly, especially if you have like that sort of stuff that can be used as a template or as a movie director, basically. I don't know. Maybe it just takes a lot of time, and they don't want to spend the time and money to do it. I don't know, but I think spending a lot of time in making a great AI for 4X actually pays off in the end, because it makes the game better, and gamers, the actual 4X gamers will notice it. But I guess they're more interested in making multiplayer a thing. So yeah.
Oh, probably. Other issues that Civilization 6 had is, well, the main one is the interface. It's horrible. Like 5 had a perfect interface. 6 is dreadful. They waste so much space. They add scrolling bars where there shouldn't be any, just so they could waste your time. They put buttons where there shouldn't be buttons. To find the list of units, you have to go like in a little small area under the name of a unit, where you're not even sure if there's a button there, but there is, and that's where you have the list of units. It's so, playing it with an unmodded interface should be a war crime.
Well, haven't they again? I don't understand why that sort of stuff exists. Because don't they just fucking like QA this shit or do some?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened with 6. Like, they had the great idea with the districts, but everything else was sort of like down the drain.
Do some talk aloud testing. Come on, guys, that's just basic
maybe
shit.
Sean Bean cost too much, and they didn't have enough money. No, wait, Sean Bean, was he in the 5th one as well as the voiceover?
Ooh, can't remember that. I don't know. I really don't
just
know.
In 6. I
Does
think
he
he's
get
in
killed
6.
by the end? Does he die by the end?
Yeah, he does. In each of these games, he dies in the intro. He died in the intro of Beyond Earth as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah, poor Sean.
So he couldn't have cost that much if you kill him. I don't understand, man. But so the interface is shit, but you said you can mod it, right?
Oh yeah, like when you mod it, it's usable. It's still not perfect because some buttons are harder to move out, like the unit ones, but it's a lot more usable. Modding may save this game, honestly, because the base version is not. It's many steps backward from 4 and 5, many of them.
But again, you see, one of these double-sided swords that more advanced technological capabilities in our houses have brought is that it's literally made developers lazier.
Yep.
And like Bethesda has been literally surviving. Well, not really. They make a lot of money, but from a reputation standpoint, the only thing that keeps their games still being playable is the fact that there is a very, very thriving modding community.
Yep.
For everything, especially starting with. I mean, I know it was a thing before Skyrim, but Skyrim really made
it it too.
It did need it, but due to its popularity, it also made modding for it popular. It brought it more. It brought modding itself more into the gaming mainstream than it actually was. And then later on, we're at the same time with the Fallout, which, by the way, as we're recording this in a couple of hours, we're finally going to find out what exactly Fallout 76 is.
Is it going to be a co-op city builder or a base builder with zombies?
I don't know. Zombies, no ghouls. I don't know, but I am cautiously optimistic.
I would have wanted dialogue back, but okay. It's a thing that you build things in the Battle Royale style, sure.
I don't know. Man. I don't know. It's the trailer gives off the impression that it might actually be co-op. It could just as well be a MMO.
Well, if they said that one of the inspirations was Rust, so I'm at least hoping you'll be able to hit people in the crotch again. Because
that would be cool.
In Rust, the crotch was a big focus.
In Fallout 1 and 2, it was a valid focus as well.
Like in Rust, the size of your ding dong is based on your randomly on your account. It's not changeable.
Not customizable, you mean?
Yeah, you're born with it.
Technically true. Depends on the level of technology. Depends what you research.
Yeah.
Either pharmaceutics or other hydraulic type thingies.
Coming back to Civilization 6, I'm really not. I spent like 20 hours playing it, and I was sad at the end. Like,
That's never a good thing.
It just went backwards so much, and the series just sort of, apart from the districts, everything else is stagnating or worse than it was even in 2. There's no more interaction with the environment and the idea of pollution or health, or I think there is health though, and the corruption aspect of it. There is no more rising sea levels, no more melting ice caps. You don't have the ability to change the world anymore.
Maybe it's because they're addressing the American market a lot, and they're not really big on climate change.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Ubisoft did what's all very much in favor of Trump's border wall with the Crew 1, but once people started going, oh, maybe that's not a good thing, they removed it from the Crew 2. Yeah, it was kind of weird because there was no border wall with Canada. You would just drive into Canada and then get your car reset. But the Mexico border, solid giant wall, going from sea to sea.
From sea to oily sea.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That doesn't sound great. Do you have any idea if they're working on a 7, or they plan a 7, or are they still into expansion
there are
mode?
probably going to be 2 more expansions for 6. That's how it went with 5, and that's how it went with 4 as well. Oh, but I forgot to mention, 4 had random events in it. In 4, random stuff could happen. Here, not so much.
Wow, that shouldn't have been. I mean, that should be a general thing. I imagine you should have random events in the world.
Not anymore. You don't even have the UN. There is no more. The political aspect went to basically nothing. You can't form a coalition of nations to discuss things politically. It's simplified. I wouldn't say dumbed down, because again, the bit with the districts, that's an improvement. That makes it a lot more interesting. But it's almost like it's trying to veer towards a city builder rather than a 4X game, like in the full sense of what Civilization was.
Do you think, like, this is just putting some gas on the fire? But do you think it's actually a conscious decision in order to avoid or minimize any sort of politically induced backlash that they might get? Because especially from the US, like, you just recently in a video, someone called you what?
Oh yeah, I had an anti-Soviet agenda because I told people about the bloody revolution of '89.
So again, nowadays everyone has to deal with that sort of weird random bullshit. And as we all know, maybe that was one of those Russian trolls. It's not like Romania doesn't have its own issues with some recent communist trolling going on.
Yeah, my dad had to go to that to keep his job.
Oh, son of a bitch!
Yeah,
fucking.
You want to keep your job? Go there. Okay.
Son of a bitch!
And today our car got on fire.
Caught on fire?
Yeah, the electrical bit sort of and fire. It's fine now. It's out. It's working again after they put other electrical bits in.
Yeah. So maybe that's why they skirted away from the what should be quite detailed or deeply political induced or political system in the game. First of all, to avoid any of that sort of thing. And maybe some people would just literally say, well, I deal with this shit all the time on TV and in real life, and I don't want to deal with it in my games.
It's kind of disappointing, though, because one of the best political games in terms of discourse was Alpha Centauri, in which you had the ability to see everybody's political stance. Unless they were like an outright authoritarian Nazi fascist type person, every type of every part of a rational-ish political stance was represented in that game equally.
Yeah, but again, Alpha Centauri was made in a completely different time.
Yeah.
This was 99, so it's almost 20 years ago, and the entire political and socio-economic landscape has tremendously changed.
Yeah. And the thing that really sort of gets me about the game is that it predicted so many things. Like when you read the quotes, you hear about things like like American learned in the end of the 20th century that what was it? The more it tries to control information, the higher the chances of it going the other way. I forget the exact quote. I'm going to look it up. You keep talking about something. I'm going to look at the quote.
No, but and there is a very marked difference when you look into any sort of entertainment or media created before and after 9/11. Because we were talking yesterday or earlier today about something, and you used a clip from a quite a funny comedy called The Big Hit, with Mark Wahlberg and Lou Diamond Phillips, and this was made in 98, I think, or 99.
Yeah, around then.
And I remember the movie, and it was super fun. And it's literally it's a great representation of what the world was like before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that movie, there is no, I mean, it's a comedy, but even in comedies nowadays, there can be a lot of real talk going on in the background, or a very serious situation being analyzed or approached. But back then, when there were really not a lot of worries related to external threats, entertainment was literally just entertainment.
Yeah,
there were no types of hidden meanings or trying to analyze. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have deeper meanings into your.
They still had back then. You had things like Starship Troopers that was basically, this is a fascist movement. If you're saying that this is okay, you're kind of a fascist.
Yeah, and you know what? The Starship Troopers, people didn't understand that was satire.
Yeah. It was the funniest thing possible.
So the book was serious. The author who wrote the book was kind of a fascist. But when I think Paul Verhoeven, I think he was the director. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but the director said. But when the director agreed to the movie, he agreed to the movie with the understanding and the knowledge that he would actually make it a satire, in the sense that, look at this human civilization using huge amounts of resources basically to squash bugs.
Yeah.
Sure, the bugs are giant and a threat, but again, it's kind of a symbolism. No, but when I'm talking about like this sort of entertainment meant only for fun, sure, arts always had a symbolism, but and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But just look at sitcoms from the 90s. Like, for instance, my wife is a huge fan of Friends. Not my cup of tea, whatever. I love her. I married her. I have to live with it. But when you look at Friends now, you notice that none of those characters really have any sort of real worry about losing their job, or really not. I mean, except for Joey, who's an actor, and that's his thing. It makes sense.
He never has work.
None of them really have to worry about the stock market or what happens, or they have houses, they have they have access to jobs. One of them can actually really can end his career and be an intern for a year, and his wife can support him until he gets for a year. So that's something that could only happen before 9/11.
Yeah.
Afterwards, not so much.
And I found the quote. It's superb. As the Americans learned so painfully in Earth's final century, free flow of information is the only safeguard against tyranny. The once chained people whose leaders at the last lose grip on information flow will soon burst with freedom and vitality. But the free nations gradually constricting its grip on public discourse has begun its rapid slide into despotism. And this is the part that's superb. Beware he who will deny you access to information, for in his heart he dreams himself your master. I botched up a bit, but yeah, that's the core of it.
Yep.
It's a wonderful quote. It's valid even today.
Of course, a lot of sci-fi is predicting, because a lot of really good sci-fi writers are actually really good students of history.
Yep.
And if you're a good or a decent student of history, everything that's going on right now in the world, we've seen it before, and in some circumstances, maybe even aided or by our playing of Civilization, which allows you to basically go through a lot of potential scenarios really fast. Exaggerated scenarios, obviously, but it does allow you to grasp the global or geopolitical aspects of things better if you also combine it with a bunch of knowledge of history. And that's what sci-fi, that's at least one of the things that sci-fi does very, very well in general, is to predict not only technology but future events to a certain degree. For instance, I saw I don't know if you're aware of the graphic novel comic book called Transmetropolitan.
No, I haven't read it.
It's a wonderful cyberpunk near future type of dystopian series written by Warren Ellis. The protagonist is a really, really crazy journalist, and everything takes place in this very weird but so familiar world. And he made this in the 90s, and yeah, a lot of what happens in Transmetropolitan, to a certain degree, does look a lot like what's going on right now. I'll actually send you the first book, the first graphic novel, so you can check it out.
Thanks.
It's great. I'm pretty sure, knowing you somewhat, you will enjoy the humor and the satire a lot.
Well, I guess that covers Civilizations.
It does cover it in a bunch. We have, like you said, we skip some stuff.
Yeah.
Civilization is there is a lot to talk about, and
we should probably have had videos dedicated to each game individually.
Yeah, pretty much. But
maybe we'll do that one day.
Yeah, that would have meant we would have to at least play each one for at least 20 hours in order to really get to the meat of it. So yeah, we're busy. We're busy motherfuckers.
Maybe after 6 gets its last expansion, we'll give it another shot.
We'll see. It's really expensive. I don't know if I can.
It'll probably be in a bargain bin, like in 2 or 3 years.
I'm pretty sure I can't really afford it. I'm waiting for the Steam Summer Sale to see if Fallout 3 and New Vegas get a discount. They should. They also get a discount if 76 is released this year.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully. Man, we should have made... God damn it. Yeah, we didn't have time. I think we need another podcast.
What?
I think we need another podcast in which we can just talk about news and shit. And I might actually have to make that one. Just talk about gaming news or geeky related news and stuff.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll have the time to do that. Mm-hmm. So, do you have anything coming up on your channel?
This week, well, man, I'm just back from my holiday yesterday. So, no, I'm still recovering from an 11 10 to 11 hour travel back from Romania to Denmark. Problem is whenever we visit, whenever we go back to our country of origin, and we can only be there a week, because this time it was only a week. We are really busy with visiting friends and family. So our holiday is way more tiring than the not holiday. So I'm super tired, and I don't think I'm going to have anything for the channel this week, but I'll definitely have something for next week. I can't really say what. I have a bunch of interesting titles. I have real-time tactics sort of game called Ancestors Legacy.
Oh, nice.
Another cool indie game called Robothorium, which is a turn-based, again, a turn-based tactics game. And I think I have a smaller thing called, it's called Paper Dungeon Scroller. So I don't know which one of these ones is going to make it to next week, but one of them definitely is going to make it to then.
Good. So guess that's it. We're only 1 hour and a half in, so you get one show out of Civilization, not two.
Yes. This was, again, I think we actually made a more of a conscious decision to try to keep it a bit tighter, hence avoiding the add-ons and whatnot.
Yeah. We only spoke about Diablo briefly for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we did get into a bunch of other shit, so yeah.
Well, see you folks next time with a different subject, which I forgot to actually write on the schedule, but it's written somewhere, I'm sure. So, see you then. Goodbye.
See you next time.